Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman. I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. That's right, folks. We are still in the comic book corner talking about Avengers Infinity War. So much to unpack in this marvelous epic. Every pun totally intended there. As I said, I've done my non-spoiler review from opening night. Just talked about how wonderful this film is. Just action-packed, so much fun, so much to talk about that getting to a spoiler review right away would be tough because it would be just such a long video. I've decided to instead do a bunch of small spoiler videos for you guys. So we've done my top 5 moments from the Avengers Infinity War. Now, time to shift gears and get a little bit more comic book nerdy. You know the drill, folks. Pull up a chair, take a seat. Today, the Seaman gives you his top 10 comic book moments from Avengers Infinity War. Look, this movie is got so much working for it, right? It's got amazing dialogue, which leads to unbelievable humor. Some of the best action we've ever seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Action we've never seen before. I mean, we get like a legit old school war kind of like hand-to-hand combat battle sequence. We get an awesome sequence on Thanos' homeworld. There's just all this action, all this stuff. But the thing that maybe the Russo brothers do almost as well as everything else, and maybe even a little bit better, being a comic book nerd, the comic book references that are in the movie are phenomenal. There's a ton of them. They litter this movie with comic book Easter eggs that are right off the pages of the Infinity War comics. Or, the Infinity War, Infinity Gauntlet, anything involving Thanos and the Infinity Stones, right off the pages of those comic books, as well as moments or just things that are in the comic book world that just make you go, oh, so nice. So, let's get right into it. My top 10 comic book moments, or comic book things in Marvel's Avengers Infinity War. Number 10, the Outriders. We saw them right out the gate in the very first teaser trailer. These are the alien creatures that Cap and Black Panther are fighting out on Wakanda. So well adapted from the comics. They look like they were just pulled right off the comic book pages, which I love. And the way they function is just like in the comics. They are controlled by Thanos to do anything Thanos wants. They will kill themselves to please Thanos. And that's exactly how they operate in the movie. When they're trying to storm through the shield that surrounds Wakanda, it decapitates, or cuts things off, right? We've seen, just like when they're trying to get through, boom, arm goes off. Oh, they try to get through, it closes in on them, they get cut in half. But there are so many of them, right? Proxima Midnight mentions to the Avengers, we have blood to spare. And these things start storming, so much so that there are so many of them. The wall starts breaking enough where some of them are able to get through, and Black Panther says, all right, open part of the wall so that they can't get behind us. Let's just take them head on. So I love the adaptation of the Outriders in the movie. Really, really cool. Number 9, we finally get to see White Vision. Yes, we all know that Vision is so spot on visually, right? He visually looks like he's just been ripped right off the comic pages. One of the best adaptations of all of the Marvel heroes. But one of the more iconic versions of Vision is the White Vision. He's completely white, and he's just this badass version, of Vision. And we get to see that in this movie. Just not in the way I think Vision would have wanted us to see it. After Wanda destroys the Time Stone, or the Mind Stone, not the Time Stone, destroys the Mind Stone, Thanos shows up and uses the Time Stone to bring him back so he can take the Mind Stone out of Vision's head and do it in the most brutal way possible. He just goes in there with his fingers and rips it right out of his skull, which leads to Vision's immediate death. But when Vision dies, all the color drains from his body, and as he lies there dead on the ground, we do get our White Vision. Not the exciting way we probably would have liked to have seen it, but again, just an interesting, cool way to take something that you had to do, which was kill Vision in the movie, and give comic book fans just a visual of something that we know, boom, right from the comics. Oh, that's awesome. Most people will just see it and be like, oh, Vision died and he lost all the color, but us comic book nerds know that is a direct call out to the white version of Vision. As heartbreaking as it is, love it. Number 7. Again, something we knew right from the original teaser trailer. The smashed skylight in Doctor Strange's Sanctum Sanctorum. So well done to take this and have this be one of the first things that we see in the movie. Because the Infinity War comic starts with Silver Surfer. Well, it doesn't start. It starts with Thanos. But when we get to our heroes in the Infinity War comic, we start with Silver Surfer crashing through the skylight into the stairs. You know, Wong and Doctor Strange coming over, like, what's going on? And the words that come out of Silver Surfer's mouth, Thanos is coming. And we get not only that line, but that scene, just not with Silver Surfer. I think had Marvel Studios had the rights to all the characters from the get-go, probably would have been able to have an X-Men movie or a Fantastic Four movie, and eventually gotten Silver Surfer involved, and I bet Silver Surfer would have been the first choice if Marvel had access to him. They don't, so what do? They take Hulk. Brilliant plan. We get an amazing fight between... Well, I mean, it's not amazing, but it's amazing. It's very quick, but between Thanos and Hulk, that leads Heimdall to make sure to save Hulk. Hulk's about to die, and to save him, he uses dark magic to bifrost him to Doctor Strange's. And when he gets to Doctor Strange's, he crashes through the skylight of the Sanctum Sanctorum, just like Silver Surfer did in the comics. And you get that shot of, like, you know, Doctor Strange looking over, and you can see the hole in the skylight right over his shoulder. Like I said, using Hulk to adapt that and have him become Banner. One, it sets up some really nice storyline stuff for Banner and Hulk's character arc, which we'll get to in a different video. But that moment allows, you know, you get that iconic line right out of Bruce Banner's mouth. Thanos is coming, and we are off and running. So I love that drop right at the beginning of the movie. Number 10, 9, 8, 7. Number 7 on the list. The reference to Alars, Thanos' father. So what's really cool is we get to see Vormir, which is the planet where the Soul Stone apparently has been hiding this whole time. Only person who knew this was Gamora. She takes Thanos there because she has no choice. And this scene, we get a couple cool things, right? We get to see that Red Skull is still alive. I mentioned this when I did my Captain America review, that when the Tesseract kind of exploded on him, it looked more like he had been Bifrost sent somewhere. That's exactly what happened. Red Skull is brought to Vormir, and while he's there, he can't possess the Soul Stone, so he becomes the person who's kind of like its gatekeeper. He brings people to the Soul Stone and continually watches them fail. But while he's there, he knows Thanos and Gamora without meeting them. Clearly, he has the ability to see a whole lot of stuff, and he references Thanos' planet and, you know, Thanos' background, and says Alars, Thanos' father. Why is this a big moment? Because this confirms the existence of the Eternals. Thanos' father is one of the Eternals in the Marvel universe, and there's been a lot of rumors and conversation with Kevin Feige about the concept of possibly doing an Eternals movie come Phase 4, or whatever they decide to call. I think we're getting rid of the phases. So whatever comes next, one of the movies that's being discussed is an Eternals movie, and boom, right there, the Russo brothers dropped just one line that confirms that the Eternals exist, and I love that. Which then brings us to number 6 on our list, and this is the Ebony Maw torture sequence of Doctor Strange. Now, totally, a little bit different than the way it is executed in the comics, but if you've read the comics, you will remember that iconic moment of Ebony Maw messing with Strange's mind to extract information from him. We get that in the movie, man, and it is so cool looking and badass. We come into Ebony Maw's ship, and Doctor Strange is just kind of floating there. And he can't move, and there are all these sparkling, white, shining, kind of needle-looking things hovering around Strange. And Ebony Maw is just so well done in this movie. I love his look and his voice and his execution, just so good. Terrifyingly creepy as he pushes them ever closer to Doctor Strange's face, trying to extract information about where the time stone, like to get the time stone. And as they get closer and closer, they eventually start to touch Strange, and the light kind of spreads through his face and starts to torture him. And it's just this boom, big iconic moment that's, again, right off the pages of the comics, but adapted a little bit differently to work within the context of the movie. But another just nice tip of, hey, if you've read the comics, you know that Ebony Maw has tortured Doctor Strange, and we get it in the movie. Which brings us to our number 5 on my top 10 comic book moments of Avengers Infinity War, and it's a 2-for-1 with Doctor Strange. During the battle on Titan, we get 2 awesome Doctor Strange moments. The first of which is his use of the Images of Icon spell. That might be second. Let's you know what? No. Let's start over. First, we get to see the Crimson Bands of Sidorak. If you're, again, familiar with the comics, one of the things that Doctor Strange has the power of are these kind of like ribbony looking things that look like red ribbons in the comic book. And in the movie, he uses the Bands of Sidorak to try to hold Thanos down so they can get the gauntlet off. And there are these really cool red looking magic entities that he utilizes. And as soon as they happen, I was like, oh man, that's awesome. Which is fairly quickly followed up by the Images of Icon spell. Another real iconic Doctor Strange thing where when he uses this spell, Strange can multiply himself as many times as he wants. In the comics, the alien being, I believe it happens on Vormir, and the alien being that he's fighting, which is kind of dragon-esque, just shoots fire to wipe out all the fake Stranges. In this movie, it is I believe it's the Reality Stone power in the gauntlet, allows Thanos to just wipe out all of the fake Stranges and find the real one. But getting to see that visual of Strange starting to multiply out and then boom, multiply out, just gorgeous, so well executed. As soon as it happened, I went, oh, man, just more iconic imagery right off the pages of the Marvel comics. I love it so much that we have a top 10 list. It's wonderful to see these things kind of rip right off the page for us. Which brings us to number 4. And this is a real tiny one that if you're not really looking, I didn't even pick up on it until I went and saw the movie the second time. Early on, when Cap gets into a fight, some of his suit starts to fray. Now, Cap's suit, obviously different this time. It's kind of all black and gray. Kind of a nod to his Nomad suit. And that's not what the comic book moment is that I'm referring to. What's really cool is the one thing that we've seen just about everybody's outfits in some degree kind of take shape in the cinematic universe. And we've gotten a ton of different Cap outfits. Cap outfits. They kind of all have the same kind of build to them. But the one thing that we've never seen is the original Captain America scales. Well, in an early fight sequence, suit gets frayed, and underneath the top part of the suit, in the cutout, are the scales. You get to see the Captain America scales, and the way the Russo brothers present it make you go, oh my gosh, those have always been there. The scales have always been protecting Cap. Most likely, because it's the same structure as almost all of his suits, probably if you were to cut all of his suits, they would have scales underneath it. Now, granted, that's probably not true in reality, but in the context of the cinematic universe, that's an awesome nod to get the Cap scales visualized on screen. Never thought we would see it. And in just a really, really, really tiny moment, if you're not paying attention, you miss it. But it is there, and it's wonderful. Which brings us to number 3 on our top 10 list, and that is a fantastic Spidey moment on Titan. When Spidey gets to get his first shot at Thanos in the movie, the first thing he does is he shoots a web right in Thanos' face. That is directly off the comic book pages, man. In the comics, when Spidey shows up to fight Thanos, one of the first things he does, hits him in the face with the web, and does that in this movie. And as soon as it happened, the theater exploded. That's why I love going on opening night. Because the opening night, they're usually your comic book guys. And the crowd just picked up on everything that was going. Or not everything, right? Like I said, I missed the scales. But anything that was big, that was obvious, when they hit, got the kind of reaction that was like, oh yeah, like I know that, I've seen that visual, that webbing right on Thanos' face. Absolutely gorgeous, wonderful, wonderful moment. Which then, of course, brings us to number 2 on our list. And this is, again, something ripped right off the pages of the Infinity War comics. Thanos and the way he uses the Reality Stone throughout the entire movie is amazing, right? When he's on Titan, he's able to use the Reality Stone to show Doctor Strange what Titan used to look like before the destruction of Titan happened. He's able to manipulate all sorts of things. But one of the coolest and first things we see him do with the Reality Stone after acquiring it from Nowhere and the Collector is, he does a couple things, but one of the best moments is Drax comes running for him, and he goes, whoop, and Drax gets cut into cubes and just kind of collapses. Mantis comes flying over, and she gets shredded into ribbons. And in the comics, these simultaneously, Thanos does both of these things against Nebula and his brother Star Fox. So to see something that in the comics is, Thanos simultaneously cubing one and ribboning another, to see it, boom, pop up one right after another, almost simultaneously in the movie. Gorgeous nod to the Thanos Infinity comics. Just wonderful, wonderful shot. And the conceptualization, the way it looks, is just gorgeous. Drax kind of turns to stone, so it kind of looks like a sculpture collapsing. And the way Mantis turns into these ribbons, but it's still functional, right? Like her eyes are still blinking, and you see it happen. You're like, oh my god, we just killed 2 major characters that I didn't think was going to happen. And of course, once Thanos leaves, reality turns back to reality, and they're actually okay. But just such a cool visual shot, again, ripped right off of the pages. Which brings us to our number 1 comic book moment in the movie, and if you're not paying attention, you almost miss it. Because it kind of happens quick, and it's not real defined. In the climax of the movie, Thor delivers a shot with Stormbringer right to Thanos' chest, looking like the Mad Titan is going to die. And as he is dying, he musters up enough power to whisper in Thor's ear, "You should have gone for the head." Thor hits him in the chest, trying to kill him, rather than just straight decapitating him, which gives Thanos enough time to summon the entire Infinity Gauntlet. What's really cool is as he's there, it's this real close scene, and you can see all of the stones are starting to glow on the gauntlet. And the next thing that we do see is Thanos disappear, and then some really sad, crazy stuff starts to happen. Essentially, Thanos disappears and accomplishes his goal, wiping out half of the universe, and we watch half of our heroes turn to dust in front of our eyes, in absolutely gut-wrenching ways. But the comic book moment that surrounds this sequence, like I said, if you're not paying attention or listening to it, you might miss it. But right before he space stones himself out, Thanos goes, snap. I can't do it with my left hand as well. The snap, which in the comic books is exactly how it ends. Thanos snaps his fingers, wipes out humanity, goes to this picturesque kind of foresty area, sits down in a big chair, and just smiles. And we get the end. That is exactly how this movie ends. We get a snap of the fingers, half of our Avengers, and half of the universe gone. Just like that, all wiped out. And then Thanos recovers, sitting down, looking out on this picturesque kind of lake scene, and just smiles to himself, and we cut to black. Oh, man. To end this movie, the way they end the comic, it was just marvelous. It was absolutely magnificent. It was the thing I think all big comic book fans were waiting for in the movie. We were waiting to see and hear that snap. And Thanos, sure enough, right as he disappears, snap. And so does half of our universe. So absolutely wonderful, wonderful way to end the film from a comic book perspective. And just a wonderful execution of comic book stuff through the whole movie. I gave you my top 10. But there are other comic book elements that get dropped kind of throughout. There are Easter eggs aplenty throughout this movie. But these 10 moments specifically tied directly to the actual pages of comics. Just so well used, so well envisioned. I absolutely loved it. It's one of my favorite things in this movie is just how well they use comic callbacks and iconic scenes and place them in this movie in a way that works in the story that they're telling. So that's it. That's all C-Man's got to tell you about cool comic book stuff in the Avengers Infinity War movie. That is my top 10 comic book moments from Avengers Infinity War. So now it's your turn, man. Hit those comments below. Let me know what you thought your top 10 was as far as comic book nerdy things that you picked up on. If I missed anything, if there was stuff that you liked or didn't like, just hit those comments, let me know. As always, if you like the video, please give me a thumbs up. And of course, if you're new here, please subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, then hit the little bell so you get alerts every time I make a new video. For the C-Man Cinema Sit Down and another top 10 list in the books, I am the C-Man. I am signing off. Peace!